Well, guys, we're back for another episode. Of course, I have all things to talk about. We got insurance fraud with bears and Whoopi Goldberg. Then we have to talk about this 4B movement and what that means. Also, what's next to come as far as the presidential election, the congressional election. Yeah, it's a lot, and we're going to get to it. Welcome back to Black and Classic Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Monet, where we talk all things politics and pop culture.
Blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with black culture.
Now, first up, I want to get into this 4B movement because I saw it everywhere, all over TikTok. 4B, 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 4B. I will not lie. As a Black woman, I was like, are they talking about hair? Like, are we having a hair thing going on right now? So I wanted to get into it. And then I quickly realized when I saw white women, gonna be clear, when I saw white women chiming in, I was like, okay, so this isn't a hair conversation. Gotcha. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna let this TikTok trend pass and then I'll double back and get my information. Because in the moment when everyone is sharing their opinions, again, you don't want to get caught up in the noise. You don't want to get lost in the sauce. You want to be able to, for me, objectively view and understand what's going on. So I was like, you know what? Let's wait. I'm going to do my research later. So I waited and I did my research after the fact. Now, come to find out, this 4B movement started in Korea. So it's a Korean feminist movement that now American women are trying to, I guess, bring over here, adopt, if you will, to make it relative to the Trump win with this presidential election. So I took some notes here, of course, as you guys know. Now, according to Raphael Rashid with The Guardian, they say the 4B movement is a fringe South Korean feminist movement advocating the rejection of marriage, childbearing, dating, and sex. Now, I'm going to read this quick article that just basically sums up what I guess the 4B movement really is or how it's defined in South Korea, because I think that's very important to understand, right? A lot of times people adopt these ideas and these movements because they want to feel passionate about something. They want to reject what's going on. So they're like, what can I get behind? What can I be a part of to show how much I'm against what's currently going on and what's happening in my world, right? Without fully understanding what it means to the women in South Korea, what the origins are for the women in South Korea. To them, none of that matters. To them, it's about the rejection of marriage, childbearing, dating, and sex, right? It's like, no, we're rejecting that, right? Because, like I said previously, they believe the Republicans are telling them what to do with their body. They believe the Republicans are saying, nope, you can't have kids. We're going to force you to, do all these things with your bodies. And it's like, again, I don't know how many women are just every single time there's a chance that they're pregnant or they are pregnant, they just run out and get an abortion. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I assume they are rejecting. Okay. So, according to this article with The Guardian, the 4B name stems from four Korean words beginning with BI, which means no. So, bi means no in Korea or Korean. So, listen, I don't speak Korean. So, forgive me if I pronounce these words wrong. So, there's Bai Hun, which means no marriage. Bai Chulasan, which means no childbirth, Bayone, which means no dating, and Baiziku, which means no sex. So, as you know, those are four B's, and so that is the 4B movement, right? I don't want to try to overcomplicate it. It's four B's before based on these words, and that is the 4B movement. Now, as I'm reading through this article and I'm learning more, there are some similarities between what's happening in Korea and what's happening in the United States, right? So they have misogyny driven violence. They have illegal filming, meaning there's hidden cameras in bathrooms and, changing rooms and things like that, where people or women specifically are being filmed and it's being uploaded to like the internet. They have deep fake porn. So they're creating fake porn with real people's faces, but it's like this person actually never did this, but someone had, a hidden camera or they had their photo and they used that to create this like AI deep fake porn. And then they also said there's this demanding beauty standard, right? So it's like, here's what we say is beautiful, and that's what society has to now achieve. And I totally understand the similarities and how people could feel that this represents them, but I think we play a really dangerous game when we start to bring on movements that, yes, there may be similarities, but I don't know if it's as extreme as we believe it to be. I think we run the risk of raising women in a household where we say reject marriage, reject childbirth, reject dating, reject sex. Because what happens is you get a group of women all together and they raise up women and they raise up, boys and then go on to have men with this ideology of the 4B movement. And it's like, that is so scary because we already see the jokes online of women being like, who started this feminist movement? I want to get back in the kitchen. I don't want to have to work. I don't want to have to go out and, we now see those conversations happening. So now if you take into account that now women are saying even further, no, past not, wanting to go out and work. No, we're going to go past that. Now we're going to say we don't want marriage and we don't want men a part of our lives. And I saw a TikTok of a woman being like, ladies, stock up on your batteries and get your sex toys. And it's like, we are really going far, like really far, as opposed to me, I think the most logical thing is to just get involved. I don't know, maybe I'm off on that, right? But I feel like the most logical thing you could do is to get involved and make your voice heard and be a part of these decisions and not let someone else solely make the decisions because you want to go off and do some radical movement that really by and large won't amount to anything if the people in these seats are still making these decisions. So if they're still making the decisions and you're just stomping and yelling and throwing a tantrum, what is actually getting done? What actually needs to get done is you participating in a way that is effective. To me, a 4B movement is not effective. It may be effective in Korea, but in the United States, I can't see how that's effective to just say, well, now I won't get married to a man because Trump became president. I can't find the words because I don't understand that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to have a child because Trump became president. That doesn't make sense because you just said you want the right to abortion. So either way, you weren't having the child, I guess, right? Like, I don't know. You're not going to date because Trump became president. You're not going to have sex because Trump became president. What does this actually amount to? And who are you actually hurting? Because I can tell you, not every woman is going to follow behind this movement. So at the end of the day, who are you actually hurting? Who are you taking a stand for? And what does this get you? Like, I don't quite understand it. I get wanting to, combat, you know, um, sexual abuse and domestic violence and wanting to combat, you know, a lot of sexual offenses. I totally understand that. And that's something I can get behind. But how can we do that in a productive way? Saying, oh, I want to reject the president or I'm not happy with the president being the president, so I'm not going to get married. The two don't quite make sense. Saying I'm not going to have a child because I want the right to abortion doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't make sense. A lot of the things that people get behind, they get behind way too quick. And it's like, where is the actual productive plan. I just said it last time. When you come forward with something and you want to get behind something, make sure there's an agenda, there's a plan, there are steps. We know what we're trying to get after. Simply just throwing all your emotion behind one thing just because you're upset in a moment is kind of crazy. Not gonna lie to you, it's a little bit crazy. It's very dangerous to start building up a movement that just will amount to nothing. And then you're going to have these young girls who are so impressionable scrolling their TikToks. That's another reason why I say kids shouldn't be on social media, because their minds are very impressionable. And now adults also feed into these things. So it's like you're creating a world where young girls, teenagers, young adults who, don't have it in them to kind of dig deeper or to understand what they're being told, believing this, and then they become adults built on the ideology of what, I don't need a marriage and I don't need childbirth and I don't need dating and I don't need sex. And it's like, that is just so weird. Also, to mention, now you're telling people they can, you know what? I'm not gonna touch that. I'm not gonna go down that road just yet. I don't want that battle today, but just know a lot of these things, there is an agenda. I will say that there is an agenda, but yeah, no, I'm not gonna go down that road, because I will say this. I will say this. A lot of the women that I've seen making these, a lot of them are already a part of a certain community. And so you now telling other women, although you're a part of this community, you now telling women that they don't need marriage, dating, childbirth, or sex is like, oh, okay. Hmm, that's interesting. But I'm going to move on from that. I'm going to move on from that. Just understand that if you want to get behind something, if you want to stand for something, if you want to make your voice heard, there is an actual way you can do that. You can get involved and you can start with something real, tangible, that actually matters. As we go into this next segment, it's going to make more sense as well. But if you are upset with, like I always say, if you are upset with things on a large scale, focus locally, focus on where, your voice can be heard and impacted. Don't just go jumping behind movements, because you guys jump behind movements and it lets you down every single time, because they're all just for show. It's for show. It's a place for people to vent and get out their outrage without actually having a plan of action, right? We're just here to yell and scream at men and bash men instead of actually having a plan, because it's not all men, right? It's not all people who feel this way. So it's like, let's be a little bit more practical with our approach than emotional, right? Now, switching gears, I wanted to get on to what to do after and during Trump's term, because, of course, as we all know, January 20th is going to be the inauguration. He's going to be in office. Great, beautiful. But what else does that mean? What else can we do in the meantime and in between time to kind of change this thing up, right? Because if we just feel like, oh, he's in office, so everything's going to shit, then you'll be defeated and you won't pay attention when you need to pay attention. So in 2026 will be the congressional election. Let's get that word correct, right? So that's House and Senate. We vote who's going to go in there. Actually, I think it might be just Senate, but with that being said, I read an article, and this is according to Timothy Kama with Politico, and he said Democrats have been in charge of the Senate since 2021, but will be in the minority in January. So that means typically the Senate was heavy blue. Now it's going to be heavy red. Cool. However, in 2026, there's going to be 33 seats available. And I think it's important that even if, not everyone will pay attention to every single person, running for Senate and who wants to fill these seats, I think it's important if we're looking at these 4B movements, if we're looking at wanting things to be changed, if we're looking at stopping Trump from, passing certain things and voting certain things into law and things like that, we need to know who's sitting in these houses and who's sitting in these Senate seats. So if we have this Senate election coming up in 2026, what better a time than to make sure we know when it's happening and we know when we can vote? When you have your local elections, you see the signs when you're riding around town. If you see a bunch of them, remember the name, Google the name, see what they're talking about, see if you can find out when they're speaking somewhere or if they're having a town hall or if they're going to be at City Hall. Go out and listen, because we cannot keep just blindly being upset and having all this rage and throwing out a blind vote because, well, this person is Democrat, so that's who I'm going to vote for. What is that person saying they're going to do? Even if they don't do it, at least they're talking as if they align with what matters to you. So you can say, you know what, they didn't do it, but I put my vote behind them. And then you can put their feet to the fire, right? And kind of say, hey, this is what we want. A lot of people don't realize, to me, I feel as though a lot of people don't realize how important their voice is. Like, your voice is very important. And so you need to use that in every capacity that you can. Don't just feel as though putting some memes up on your Instagram is enough. You need to be able to go out to your towns and sit in on these meetings, because they are open to the public. When things are being spoken about, budgets and things like that, they're open to the public. It's not something that's behind locked doors. Like, no, you can literally go in and sit in and you can get your concerns heard and you can talk about these things. But people don't want to do it. They want to be outraged and they want to get behind crazy movements and put the hashtags up, and that makes them feel more involved than actually being involved, because being involved takes work. It takes work. It takes going out, sitting for hours, figuring these things out, asking the questions, doing the research, seeing if it's done, seeing how, if you do go with candidate A, seeing how that actually impacts you and seeing how they actually can get things done, or maybe they tried and it takes work to get involved. But what I want to happen is that I want in 2026, I don't want it to just stop at us being outraged, right? I don't want it to stop at us being outraged right now and being like, oh, I'm so upset and this is ridiculous and Trump shouldn't be president and it's going to be terrible and it's going to be fucked up when we have this election in 2026. Don't forget, get involved. Find out when your local primaries are. Find out when your mayor's up for election. Find out when your, state representatives and all of these different people are up for election. Don't just, granted, I did the same thing. I did my best to research it, but I didn't do my specific town, right? Like, I researched the capital of my state, which is Hartford. I researched those people. I looked into those people. I didn't really look up like my specific town. But that's all important, as well as knowing your governor. When is your governor going to be, up for reelection? And do you want to vote for him again? Do you want to vote for her again? Do you want someone else? All of those things are very, very important, because as we can see with these swing states, or states that were once heavily one-sided, has changed. Things are always up for change. It's just up to us to be able to step in and say, hey, I no longer want to go off of just my outrage and my feelings. I don't want to vote blindly because I believe, because I'm Black or I'm African American, I have to vote blue. There's no other way for me to vote. I have to vote blue. Or because I'm white or Caucasian, I have to vote red. I have to vote Republican. I have to be conservative. There's no other way. That's not true. Sadly, we're in a time where we believe you have to be on one side, right? Like, you have to be left or you have to be right. There's no other way about it. And that's not true. There's that whole middle area where I believe you can kind of sway back and forth. You know what I mean? Maybe you voted Democrat for your presidential candidate, but now in 2026, when it comes to this Senate election and this congressional election, you're going to want to go and vote Republican. because you like this Republican candidate, this person's plan, right? And what they have an agenda and they have a plan and they know what they want to do. It's speaking to you. It aligns with what you would like to see, right? So you want to vote them in. That's your choice. Or maybe you voted Republican and now when it comes to this congressional election, you're like, you know what? I want to get more Democrats in those seats. We got 33 up and I want to get more Democrats in. So, maybe there's a seat available in whatever the fuck state, and now you want to speak to that. You want to post about that, or you want to get more people thinking about it. Like, we have to be so much more involved. I think Americans by and large are very hands off until it comes to a presidential election, and then that, I would say, within that 8 months everyone's so focused on it, and then after that we wipe our hands with it, we move on. A 2026 congressional election, no one thinks about it, no one cares, no one's showing up to vote. And that's what they want. The people who are voting are the ones who know what they want to happen, right? They care, right? They want to be involved, so they're going to go out and vote. The rest of us, we're going to be following behind these 4B movements, and we're going to be following behind these random campaigns that pop up, and none of it pushes us to go and vote, to go and pay attention to these leaders, to go and pay attention to who's sitting in these seats. None of it does that. None of it does that. All of it really steers us away from the voting booth, which is very, very dangerous. And like I said in the last episode, where the Republicans, they have, quote unquote, Project 2025. Who is speaking to your issues? Who's giving you that thick book of here's what I want done? Because now if that person's doing that, then guess what? You can say, okay, here's the issues that they want. Here's what I think works for me. I'm going to throw my support behind them. That is so important. I keep stressing this message. Guys, please don't vote blindly. Please don't just vote for a party because you think that's just who you should vote for, whether it Republican or Democrat. Don't just vote for this party because you think that's just who you're told you should vote for. Understand what that vote means and who that person is. Whether they do something or they don't, at least you gain an understanding and the knowledge of who you're voting for. Because what happens is Trump has an idea, it goes to the House and the Senate, they see if they fuck with it or not, and then it gets passed or they veto it. I think that's the term. So if we have a house full of people that agree with him to start with, then, and we already see how obviously the country wants to vote, right? So if we get a Senate full of people who agree with him, then whatever he wants is going through, So we want to make sure that if we are so outraged and if we do believe strongly in this 4B movement, no marriage, no childbirth, no dating, no sex, like we fully believe in this, then we might want to get out to that election in 2026 to make sure once those things start funneling down, there's some people there that have the same have the same stance as us to kind of reject what he might want to push through. But that's on you as the people. That's on us as Americans. We can't sit back and let things happen, and then once they happen, just go and start the outrage. That's ass backwards, and it does not work. Like, it literally does not work. But who am I, right? I'm just here to give y'all some information so that y'all can think just a little bit differently, or keep doing what you're doing. I guess it's working for you. Now, next up, I thought this to be very interesting because when I saw the headlines, I was like, interesting. Now, I know this woman to be a little controversial, a little problematic, but I said, you know what? Let me look into it because I don't want to, again, just start being angry and be like, ugh, here this lady goes again. I don't want to do that. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's look into it. So who am I talking about? I'm talking about Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg had this incident occur, and the people the people then went crazy, and I couldn't quite understand. So I was like, what is going on? You know what? Let's listen to the clip because they were upset. So I'm going to play this clip and then we'll discuss further.
Refuse to make them for me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What? Oh,
No. Let me explain. They said that their ovens had gone down, all kinds of stuff, but folks went and got them anyway, which is why I'm not telling you who made them. But can't be because I'm a woman, but perhaps they did not like my politics.
Yeah.
Okay, the boiler was broken. I mean, you could hear the New York City councilman there. They brought everybody to those microphones.
Not political, is what they're saying. This is just pure evil by Whoopi Goldberg trying to destroy a family business that's been in business for as long as they just said, just because it couldn't be that she might actually not get a cupcake on her birthday. And because she's such a lunatic, she thinks anything that doesn't go her way is some conspiracy theory against her and that everybody hates her. This is the intolerance of the left. Like, I have no idea how these people voted, but I'm going to guess that some of the people that just spoke are probably Democrats. And thank goodness that they came out, and thank goodness that they said, you don't do this to our bakery. You don't do this to a family business. I hope there's a lawsuit here. I hope Whoopi Goldberg has to pay a huge, huge birthday check to this bakery. They deserve it.
I think ABC's on the hook here.
I hope they pay too then.
Because what we were just talking about, they don't mention Holterman's Bakery, but when you look up, by the way, everybody's Googling this so much now that you just put in 3 letters and it's the first
there.
thing that comes up. But when you go, you see they're iconic, those cupcakes.
Yes.
So they're in like every shot of what's being said while Whoopi's, tearing this woman down and accusing her of being politically discriminatory.
Now, what's interesting about that clip, once that gentleman, I don't know who that is. I'm not gonna lie to you. Once he started speaking, I was like, oh, they're making, like, even though she said it's because of my politics, they're really making this a political issue. And I said, you know what, let me just watch a little bit more and leave it to Harris Faulkner, who I love. And that's the woman in the green. She said, because at first, let me rewind. When that gentleman began speaking, I was like, why does he have this, like, it almost feels like a visceral anger towards Whoopi, because I'm like, she didn't say the person's name. She didn't say anything that would have led me, if I had saw that clip, nothing in me would have said, oh, she's talking about such and such bakery. Nothing would have brought me to that conclusion. I would have said, okay, Whoopi, sure. What got me, though, is Whoopi said she called in and they said no, but then someone else went and got the dessert. So for me, it's like, well, if I do it under, even if someone says, oh, for Whoopi Goldberg, and they say no, whatever is malfunctioning, and then someone else calls the order in and leaves out the Whoopi Goldberg part, and now they get it, it does look a little bit of a way, because it's like, so if I say it's for Whoopi, I can't get it. But if I say it's not for Whoopi, same order, I can get it. It does look a little bit of a way. So I was like, you know what? I'm with Whoopi. She didn't say the name. She just said this bakery, and it is what it is. However, what I did like that Harris pointed out was that they had the dessert on display. So if you're familiar, now I'm not, because I'm not from Staten Island, so I'm not familiar with this 145-year-old bakery. I'm not familiar. But if you are familiar with this bakery and with the way they decorate their dessert, then obviously you immediately know who she was talking about, because the desserts were on full display while she was saying this. Now, to me, I'm not going to give you that type of publicity. If you say, you know what, no, I can't do it because whatever is having an issue, so I can't get that order out for Whoopi, and then someone else calls and orders it and you can get the order, cancel the whole thing. And if you don't cancel it, we'll eat that in my green room. I'm not putting that out on stage. I might say it, but I'm not going to have the dessert on the stage. No, we could leave that in the back. Somebody run down to wherever they record their view, go to the local grocery store, grab us, 24 cupcakes. We'll put that on display. And I'll just say, we tried to get cupcakes from my favorite bakery, but they said, woo, somebody, like, you know what I mean? Then I would tell the story and say, but these are from our local grocery store. You know what I mean? And just forget about them. I don't think I would put it there because now people can say, oh, well, I know who does, desserts like that. And they can put two and two together. I just don't like that they turned it into a super political thing because I'm like, bro, this is literally about some cupcakes. You know what I mean? And maybe they just don't like Whoopi, because she was like, oh, it's not because I'm a woman. It could be because I'm politics. So maybe a woman called back and got the order through. Or maybe they just don't like you, Whoopi. Like, that also can be it. They just simply don't like you, girl. And they were like, no, we don't want to make no cookies for no Whoopi Goldberg. You know what I mean? And if they are, which it does seem they're very right leaning, that's why Fox is reporting this how they are reporting it, then yeah, they're not going to like your takes. And then for the bakery, they came out with like, I think a state representative or something like that, or a councilman. The borough president of Staten Island spoke, as well as the owner now of the bakery spoke. And I'm like, look, y'all are doing a lot. Like, hit dogs will holler. To me, there's some validity to what Whoopi said for y'all to have to go out and do this grand old press conference about some dessert. Like, your business is not going to be hurt. So relax. I think like a lot of companies do when there's bad publicity, they issue a statement on their social medias and they say, oh, with heartfelt, da 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 da, and they give you the spiel, and then everyone gets under the comments and they support, or they say, oh, you should have just made Whoopi the cupcakes, and then boom, wash your hands with it and be done. But this whole we demand an apology and all of that, and now they're most likely now with this guy dog whistling to sue, they're most likely going to try to sue ABC, another dog whistle, like, oh, who's under the bus, ABC or Whoopi? When you do a lawsuit, you throw everybody in the kitchen sink in. So everyone's going to be named in the suit. Everyone that's sitting in that chair, anybody who called, everyone and a mama is going to be named in that lawsuit. And they're going to settle, give them a little piece of change, and move on. So it's crazy. To me, I don't think it should be something that elevated to be this big, but I feel like this is a prime example of the post-Trump effect when a lot of people say things like, oh, now that Trump won, all his supporters feel bold and things like that. I think this is a prime example of that post-Trump effects because they didn't say the bakery's name. So if the bakery had never come out and made a statement, would people locally know? Yes. But would people in Connecticut really know? No. If they never made a statement, no. We would have to do a whole bunch of digging and nobody really would care that much, to be honest. It would not be news. It would literally be a headline on Tuesday, and by Thursday, everyone would forget. People in, Alabama, they don't know. People all the way over in South Dakota, they don't know. Like, no one really would have known if a hit dog didn't holler, and the dog hollered and screamed, barked, and did everything else to get attention to itself. To me, and then got politicians and people who work in government involved. So you got politicians in to say it's not a political matter. Okay. I don't know if that makes too much sense to me, but okay. I'm telling you, this these next 4 years are going to be interesting to say the least. I think we're going to see a lot of things like this where something happens and the right wants to make it a huge issue, and then something happens and the left wants to make it a huge issue. I think the saddest part, though, is the left makes issues out of death because, again, like I said, fear mongering. They want to make you really upset and really outraged, and they want to have you react off of emotion. So they're going to every single death by cop that they can find and that they can locate. Let me tell you, get ready for the headlines. It don't matter what the story is, they're going to give you the headline. Cop shoots and kills. Cop murders this. Like it's going to they're going to bring up old cases if they can, such and such up for parole, or they are going to force it down your throat the best way they can. So all 4 years, all you remember um are the names of victims who were killed. No matter how it took place, no matter what the actual facts are, all you're going to know is cop killed such and such, cop murdered such and such. Mark my words, it is coming. It's not going to come under Biden, though. They might try to do it and say, see, they're already getting started. They're already this, and this is why we shouldn't have voted for Trump, because Trump wants immunity for cops and blah, blah, blah. It is coming. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a lot of your favorite MSNBC, ABC, CNN. It's going to be a lot of those. And then you're going to get mad at the right because the right's going to be like, well, here's the facts. Here's what actually happened. He was wielding a gun, and it's going to get crazy. But just remember to stay sober-minded. Don't blindly just be outraged and get behind movements that don't mean nothing. And make your voice heard, right? Because as we spoke about, we want to make sure that we're involved in these elections, because they're already upset with, just a quick sidebar, they're already upset about Trump's cabinet. And I didn't look into everybody because, quite honestly, a lot of people, most times they are confirmed. Some might not be confirmed. They'll withdraw. So I want to see who gets confirmed. And then I want to say, okay, now who's confirmed, who's who, and what is what. Because of course we have like Elon Musk, we have Matthew Gates, we have Marco Rubio, we have, I can't remember the gentleman names. He ran for president as well, but he didn't get it. I can't remember his name, but him. So it's there's a few people who are interesting, to say the least. There are some who I have no idea who they are, but I would love to learn more. And I'm going to do so as they get confirmed and as some withdraw, who gets replaced and things like that. So I don't want to jump in too soon just off of his elections, because that typically happens. I want to see who's confirmed, and then, let's go from there. Let's go from there for sure. Now, next up and last thing I wanted to discuss, I thought this was just so funny. As someone who used to work in insurance and actually work under claims and things like that, I always find insurance fraud to be quite hilarious. So if you haven't heard, or if you did not see the clip, I'm going to play it really quickly because it, quite honestly, was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how you could be so bold to do this and not realize, like, it's a bad plan. It's a bad plan. But let's play the clip.
Video shows what looks like a bear breaking into a Rolls Royce and tearing up the interior. But after closer inspection, investigators determined it was nothing more than a man in a bear suit. Now 4 men are under arrest for insurance fraud after they used the video to place a claim. To make matters worse, detectives found 2 additional insurance claims with 2 different insurance companies on the same date of loss and at the same location. In total, insurance companies were defrauded of more than $141,000. Detectives executed a search warrant at the home of one of the suspects and found the tattered bear suit complete with metal claws.
In a Rolls?
In a Rolls.
Now, what gets me is, let's be honest, okay? I understand times are hard. it's literally a Rolls Royce, right? Times are hard. The people, like I said, we can't pay our bills. We can't, we got to figure out if we're going to buy food, if we're going to buy gas. Do I commit insurance fraud with 4 other people? Like, what do I do in this economy? I have a Rolls Royce and I really can't afford the payments on it, or I really can't afford the maintenance on it. So, you know what? Bear attack. I just don't understand where we are today, okay? I really, really don't get it. And it's quite funny to me because, first up, let's just get the jokes out the way. At what point did you think you in a bear costume could move like a bear? Bears are big. Not big as in height, big as in weight. So you're not going to be able to mimic a bear with all of their size. You know what I mean? Like, you're just not going to be able to do it. On top of that, you have to understand a bear's movement. As soon as they got in, a bear's not going to lift its arm like this. So you can't have claws and lift your arm like that. I don't know too much about bears. I just I don't think their arm is doing that. Now, maybe this, right? And then I think their arms are kind of short. So maybe that. I don't know. I don't know if it's hitting that move right there. So that is already, like, that was only like 20, not even 20 seconds. That was like 4 seconds in, maybe 15. Boom, arm going up. Cool. Then on top of that, you kicked off. Like, this just goes to show how actually fucked up it is. Like, the economy is ass. People are doing insurance fraud as a fake bear. That's how bad it is. That's how down bad people are. They have to get into a fake bear costume they probably bought off Amazon to commit insurance fraud. And I think they thought, oh, we have the video, we got the scratches, we'll be good. Let me tell you something. I worked in insurance claims, and those people, they do their due diligence. They're not shelling out money just to shell out money. They're not accepting fault to an accident that they don't believe their client is responsible for. They are doing their due diligence because the goal is to not pay out a claim for insurance, right? Like, yes, we pay all these premiums. A lot of people don't get into accidents, but when they do, they're costly. So the goal is to not pay out a claim. So they're going to make sure they do the investigation properly. You got to be a special kind of someone to think that was going to work. It's so funny, but it's also very sad because it was 4 people in 4 different cars. And it's like, you have to really be down bad to sit together with 3 other people, like you included, and say, all right, let's do this. Let's order the costume. Let's scratch up our car a little and let's get some money for it. Like, you have, like, just imagine the struggles they felt day to day for that to be their plan. Not like, and then, I mean, there's just so many things you could have did, but that really shouldn't have been one of them. So I just thought that was very funny. I felt it speaks to where we are as a society, how bad the economy is, because for you to be able to purchase a Rolls Royce but then have to commit insurance fraud on the Rolls Royce is just, it's wild. And it's wild because the economy is fucked up. Hopefully that changes as we move into this new presidential term with Trump. We'll see how it goes. They always say it's better under Trump. So, hey, let's see what he's talking about. I don't know. But it's definitely going to be interesting if this is where people are with it. It's definitely going to be interesting. So with that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Black and Classic. And listen, I didn't say it last time. I invited you guys to debate me, but today is not that day. So if you want to debate me, as I always say, no, I don't care. Debate yo granny. Don't bring it to me. Now, if you have a comment or a perspective that you want to share, I'm all ears. But if you want to debate and go back and forth, I'm not your girl. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.